Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on June the 9th, 6/9, 2021.
Yeah, the
I'm
sexiest of days.
That's right. 6/9 of the sexiest year 2020. Hold on. Anyway, so it's a good date. It's a Wednesday, however, more importantly than that, which means it's the manga talking day.
It is.
Woo!
I had a moment today. I was over at my sister's place. She's out of town, so I was feeding her cats. And I was headed out to my car, and there was a gust of wind. And I saw in the gust of wind a bunch of like orange things in it. And I thought to myself, like, a nice autismal breeze carrying along with it several little discarded fragments of leaves in like a small gust. And as it hit me, I was like, wait a minute, it's not autumn. It was just a swarm of cicadas.
We've had sex, now we're dead on top of you.
It was really a moment of me being like, what a perfect seasonal month. I was like, wait a minute. This isn't the moment I thought it was. You're just monsters.
Great, I'm covered in bug sex juices now.
I don't know why. I just found it was almost the moment where I almost like opened my mouth to just be like, what a beautiful day.
Like if it were autumn, you would be like catching the leaves on your tongue.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe one of them will have a worm crawling around on it. Yay!
Yeah. Ooh. I wonder what's in this. I wonder if it's gonna be fun that I'm gonna catch in my mouth. It wasn't.
Speaking of fun, maybe? I don't know. It's a confusing series that we had to read for this week of Weekly Manga Recap. Qualia the Purple, or known by its Japanese title, Murasakiro no Qualia. It is based on a light novel that came out in 2009 by the same name. From what I understand, the author of the series basically just kind of wrote this manga too, with artwork. So written by Hisamitsu Ueo, drawn by Shiro Tsunashima. And this is... How do I describe the genre of this series? It is sci-fi.
That is true.
Supernatural.
Yeah.
School life. Comedy, romance.
Yeah.
Thriller, mystery.
Sure.
Or adventure.
The characters do go on an adventure of sorts, so I suppose that qualifies.
So I don't think that you could really talk about this series without talking about it. So
yeah, so I'll say this. I can't remember who is the person who wrote the blurb. But the blurb was like a weird series that gets weirder. And we just read Dear Sa-chan recently, where it was like, oh, a dumpster fire series. And I think both of our thoughts were like, it wasn't that bad. So I was about 9 chapters into this series, and I was like, man, maybe the audience was just overdoing it again. Like, it's not that weird. And then like
let me flip this switch.
Yeah, let me like flip over to the next. It absolutely, because it's not even so much that this is like a series that gets weird and starts involving a lot of like quantum physics storytelling essentially and things like that. It's also just kind of a bonkers series when you get down to it. Like it really goes into some weird places.
So things start off on a relatively, for the entirety of it, normal note with our introduction to our main characters. The story is told from the point of view of a girl called Gaku, and she befriends a girl at her school named Yukari, who sees all human beings as robots.
Mhm.
That is the only way that she can see them. And it's not a delusion, it's established pretty quickly. This is just the way that she sees people, and often it actually gives her insight into what they will be talented at or what their personality is like. So, for example, she's like, "Oh yeah, this girl seems. I thought that she had like after thrusters on, so I figured she would be really good at track." And that girl is good at track after she tells her to try out for it. So Gaku is one of the few people that Yukari tells about this because obviously people think it's kind of weird if you say that everyone looks like a robot to you. You know,
Yeah, they don't take kindly to it.
we don't take kindly to people who say we look like robots. I don't know. So, things go kind of normally for a few chapters where Gaku's just, kind of getting to know her friend who sees everyone as robots, and it gets to know that that doesn't mean that she's like, cold heart or anything. It just means that, she's actually extra affectionate towards other things that look like robots. So
Yes.
she's very fond of Gundam models and stuff. So then a serial killer shows up.
This is like chapter 3, I think, by the way.
Yeah. And it turns out that Yukari is regularly in contact with the police because her ability to see people as robots and determine their personality and capabilities through this also comes in handy with her being able to pick out murderers from just their pictures. So she IDs a murderer in this serial killer case, who then hunts her down, kidnaps Gaku in order to draw her out, cuts off Gaku's arm.
We're still, again, this is like chapter 3, I think, still. Chapter 4, maybe.
So Yukari shows up to confront her, and all of her Gundam models come to life, like Toy Story style, and subdue the girl, who gets chopped into pieces, but she's still alive. She's okay. And then Yukari fixes her brain so that she's no longer a serial killer because she has the ability to see everyone as robots. She can also fix them like pieces of machinery if she just has the parts necessary to do so. And then she fixes Gaku's hand by using her cell phone.
Yes.
So now she's got a cell phone in her hand. This is chapter 5.
So...
This is a 20 chapter long series, so yes, it's like a quarter of the way through, but still, you have to keep in mind that this is 30 minutes into reading this series, and this is where you are.
Yeah, you don't spend a ton of time with just a regular old, like, oh, it's our school life, and my friend has like weird eyes, and I wonder what adventures we're gonna get into. It's like now, very quickly, crazy stuff's happening.
And then from there, we get introduced to a couple of other characters, including a girl that Yukari also fixed when they were kids, and named Tenjo. And Tenjo has kind of kept her distance from Yukari ever since then because she has parts of a jungle gym inside of her because her friend fixed her, and that's a little bit weird. So Tenjo has been doing some thinking since she was a little kid, and she's been reading some books. So she and Gaku have a conversation where she brings up Fermat and Schrodinger's cat and multiverse theory, and so this is the start of what essentially is like one long philosophical navel gazing experiment in this series, because there is a dramatic hook, because like something happens where Yukari like gets killed off, and Gaku discovers that she can use her cell phone hand to communicate with alternate universe versions of herself, and then she can jump between universes, and she can gain the abilities of other versions of herself. And since the multiverse is infinite, she has infinite access to every single possible thing that she could be doing in her life. And so she dedicates this infinite these infinite lives to trying to find a way to go back and save Yukari, and it eventually from
Uh,
there
I,
develops
I, I,
into
I
a
do feel
very
like
big thing. So
I feel like at this point we need to just say like we to talk about this series as a whole, we have to spoil it.
the
So
entire thing.
if to this point you're like, this sounds crazy, but my kind of crazy, like I would definitely suggest stopping because some of the stuff I think is best experienced not knowing exactly how it happens and then going from there essentially. But it is a delight, not just in how ridiculous it is, but often how absurdly it is presented to you. So I think my favorite thing is we start getting into it in like a little bit of a chunk of like, okay, Nabu or Kaku, whatever you want to call her. She's like, I'm going through these different things. I'm trying to figure out. At first, she's just trying to figure out how to help Yukari, and there's like a character, like a tertiary character called Alice, who is somewhat kind of responsible for Yukari leaving, which is usually like the catalyst to her dying, I think. Um, so it'll be like in one universe, it'll be Manabu being like, in this universe, I fell in love with Alice and we became wives and we shared our lives together, but unfortunately it didn't save Yukari. In the next universe, I slit her throat and buried her in the ocean. In the next universe, I was a pirate. I don't in the next it'll just be like an extended sequence of just like in the next universe I was Jeff Bezos and I made millions of dollars but I still couldn't prevent fucking Yukari from dying.
Yeah, it becomes a matter of like somehow she essentially gains access to infinite power, pretty much. And no matter what she does, Yukari ends up being murdered by somebody. So she starts to think like, is this like fate? Is this predetermined despite everything that I'm able to accomplish? Can I just not defy this fate? And she starts to ask the question also, well, Yukari's death is what caused this me to exist, going all these infinite pathways. So would it be paradoxical if I did save her? Is that why I can't seem to save her no matter what I do? And then it kind of loses. She admits that she kind of loses the plot because she's like, I mean, I kind of just kept on doing this, and I started to lose myself the more and more that I went on about this. So it becomes a thing that she's just doing because she's doing it, because it is her entire reason for being this way. So if she starts to lose that, then it corrects itself, because it's not just her doing this, it's infinite versions of herself all working together at the same time, and in the past and the future.
Yeah,
because there's infinite of her. So
yeah, it's all happening at once and also sequentially. And I think one of my favorite details is like at one point they kind of she like shows off these various different versions of herself, because like the first time you ever get introduced, it's she lives a mundane life. She was a journalist. She didn't really like do all that much. And then later on she'll like show a different version. She even kind of notes, she's like, yeah, I failed a lot of times. It's actually a lot harder for like a teenage girl to get overseas without bad things happening or like without running into problems or getting arrested or something like that. And then she's like, in one universe I was like a badass leather spy lady, kind of like badass. And then later on, like she reaches a point where they go to like the convergence of all their souls where everyone's hanging out there. And I was like, I don't know, maybe this doesn't work. A badass leather spy lady shoots her in the head and is like, I'm taking over. You're just like, what the fuck's happening?
because she's like, I don't have time for any version of myself that's gonna fall into despair like this. You're useless to me. We're gonna go and save Yukari if it takes another infinite tries. So
it's just such a funny thing. And it hasn't even gotten to the point where she continues universe hopping until she's a superhero.
The first time that we're introduced to these, infinite possibilities is actually very subdued and kind of clever, because the journalist timeline that you mentioned, she starts going on that before she's actually learned that Yukari's died. she just starts talking about like, yeah, so Yukari left, and so after that, Tenjo and I, who were her friends, kind of drifted apart, and then we came back together at a class reunion, and we kind of caught up a little bit. Anyway, I guess I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so I should go back. So, and that's the first introduction to the idea that, oh, okay, Gaku is living all of this not chronologically because she's gone forward and jumped back and forth between universes over and over and over and over again. That for her, keeping everything straight and in one direction is actually difficult because she's so used to going in all directions and being in every point in time and on the earth at once. And it gets pretty goddamn wild at a few points. There were parts of this series that reminded me of the episode of Madoka Magica where it explains Homura kept on going back to try and save Madoka, and she kept on going back over and over and over and over and over again and constantly failing. It's a similar setup.
Yes.
And then almost exactly right when I had that thought, you get introduced to a timeline where Gaku becomes a magical girl. Because she's like, yeah, so I had access to infinite universes, so I eventually gained access to one where there was magic, and so I gained that power.
And I used it to fucking murder people.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's something out of like Maho Shoujo of the end, where she's like, I'm going to punish you, and she casts this magical fist that turns someone into blood goop.
And then it's immediately confronted by their family, being like, why are you killing them? And her thought being like, I better kill them too. They might start the company in this person's absence. Just crushes them. I think
so. She's lost all sense of scope at this point. Yeah. So
she becomes an insane person. Like eventually she reaches the point where she's like, I have to kill Alice. And she's like, I killed Alice, but I got caught. And I tried killing her again. And it's harder to not get caught than I thought. But eventually I managed to kill her and no one finds out. But then they just sent someone else. So I had to kill that person. And it just, you're like, holy shit. And it's great because it's juxtaposed by her also saying, yeah, many universes I've loved Alice. And many other ones I've also murdered her. Or she's murdered me. Let's be fair. Sometimes she gets the one over on me.
It's one of those things that she's lived not only so many different lives over and over again, but lived life in so many different ways that she's become entirely callous to the experience. Mm-hmm. And like she loses sight of, oh yeah, I'm gonna murder people like incredibly quickly, and it eventually gets to the point where humans are like less than ants to her. Like, so she, for example, when the family is like dismayed that she has murdered this person who would have founded the organization that eventually kills Yukari, she's just like, why are they so upset? Like, it doesn't even just process with her that this has happened. And then things get even weirder. So I don't know exactly. So, okay. I was actually following with the logic of this series pretty okay up through this point, because the series bases itself on actual theoretical physics theorems in terms of how the universe and everything in it works and how quantum works. And so the example of Schrodinger's cat is brought up over and over and over and over again. The idea being that if you've never heard of the of the theory, if you put a cat in a box and there is a trigger that is activated by a quantum that will release poison into the box, human observation is what causes the quantum possibilities to collapse on a single reality. So until you look inside the box, the poison both has and it hasn't been released. And so the cat both is and is not dead. So because Gaku perceives her hand as being a flesh and blood hand and as a mechanical cell phone hand that Yukari has given her, she is able to see all possibilities simultaneously, which lets her jump between all those possibilities.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that just is.
so then she becomes her own mom.
That is true. She also finds out she can start taking over people.
Yeah. So she somehow starts living as different people. She can never live as Yukari or as Alice, which I believe the explanation is because she can't actually perceive things the way that Yukari and Alice perceive them.
Yeah.
Alice has a similar ability to Yukari, which is that she perceives mathematical formula as artwork.
Yeah.
So she can't see things that way, so presumably she can't acknowledge that possibility, so she can't be them, I guess. So she lives as everyone in the world, basically, including a very harrowing storyline where she is Yukari's mother and essentially destroys and ruins her life through abuse and overprotection to try and prevent her from dying. And so Yukari is a shell of herself and she wanders out into traffic and dies that way instead.
It's kind of it's pretty fucked up.
But eventually she becomes a cult leader, kind of.
Yeah.
She takes over the organization that had killed Yukari. Alice becomes her lover multiple times in this possibility that she explores until, after getting killed by Alice a few times and killing Alice a few times after they've become lovers, she uses Alice's ability to get her to draw a painting that represents the unifying theory of the universe. So,
and then
she becomes the universe.
Yes.
Like all of it.
Mm-hmm. She transcends humanity of every shell it is, basically. It becomes essentially an omniscient observer of everything.
So this allows her to finally save Yukari, because she can just tweak things in a way that she basically has things go exactly how they did in the original timeline, but in such a way that she survives the experience and is rescued.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is kind of okay, and Gaku kind of prepares herself to have this kind of bittersweet ending, where she's like, I finally did it. I'm everywhere now, though. So...
Yeah, I was gonna say, she notes, she's like, yeah, I like, no one can see me or anything like that, and I've had to exist like this since the dawn of time. So I've just had to be hanging out with nothing, just waiting for the moment where I could actually start affecting things. And you're like, good lord.
Yeah. So she's like, but Yukari is safe, and my work is done. And then Yukari looks up while she's narrating to herself and goes, Gaku-chan? And she can see her.
Yeah. It's probably the funniest moment of the manga, because it's like a full, like, 6 pages of pontificate about, like, I have lost everything that's become my humanity. Am I Gaku-chan? No. Gaku is in this world. I am something else, something neither human nor anything we could understand. Thus my lonely existence begins, but it is okay, for I have saved this thing that is so important to me. And then Yukari just looks up, Gaku? Huh? like the narration omniscient text box, like, oh.
And so essentially from there, Yukari finally makes Gaku realize, like, yeah, you took this way too far. Like, you took this too far about 75 trillion eternities ago. And so the whole thing comes down to, like, she says, like, look, you can't control my existence, only I can control my destiny, and just as you can only control yours. And through magic, I'm not even going to pretend that I understand what the logic behind this is. Yukari is able to actually bring Gaku back into an actual physical form, and they kiss. Because this whole thing has been about Gaku processing the fact that she's in love with Yukari,
Yeah.
and not really ever being able to come to terms with that. She kind of lost sight of it because she was so obsessed with just saving her that she lost sight of why she was doing it. So that timeline results in them being happy together. But that's not the end. Because Gaku's present consciousness, let's call it, then snaps back to the original timeline where she cuts herself off from the Infinity Collective that's been giving her superpowers and godlike abilities and knowledge of the infinite possibilities and stuff like that. And so she remembers part of it, but she now no longer has the mental power necessary to compute infinite to the infinite power possibilities. So then she goes home and solves the whole situation by being honest with Yukari and being like, I don't want you to go anywhere because you're my friend and I would miss you. And then she also makes friends with Alice, who is her enemy for the beginning of the series. And then they just kind of are happy together and are friends. And she's just like, you know, I don't know how things are going to result from here, but I'm with my friends and I'm with Yukari and I think that we can handle things. And that's just it. So, I was not prepared for this series, but I think I liked it. I'm just not sure.
It's on the fence. It's hard to know what you think about this series because you had to process a lot of it. And I will fully admit right now, I am not a smart person when it comes to these sort of storylines. Like the moment you start getting into like quantum physics and things like that, my brain's like, all right, I'm going to trust you. You're the smarter person than I am. So I imagine there's a lot of things I miss. Like I'm thankful I at least caught on to the very dark realization that there was one reality where Gaku and Alice got together and they talk about how Alice always had this like white hair, which was the result of her mother basically being abusive to her, and it's sort of like these entangled connections that Alice kept towards her. And in that reality, Alice ends up killing Gaku or trying to at least, because she's like, no, fuck you, you're like something's up with you. So she's like, in the next reality, I basically didn't let her get over that attachment to her mother, and it worked. I got to ascend to reality. You're like, holy shit, this is fucking dark.
Yeah.
And like,
Gaku did a lot of fucked up things.
Yeah. I imagine there are a lot of different little touches like that, particularly in just some of the theoretical stuff they bring up and how it might connect in a literary standpoint as well. And I think if you're somebody who digs that sort of storyline, like I feel like there's probably a lot of that in here for you to really dig into. It's also just a sweet little, like, I shouldn't say cute romance story because so much of it is Gaku doing horrible things, but there is like a chunk of it that you're able to be like, oh, I hope these two crazy kids end up together. And then there's a bit in the middle where you're like, oh my God. And at the end, you're like, oh, those two crazy kids ended up together.
I think that my biggest criticism of the series is that it is uneven, because about half of it is seeming like it's building up to something, and then the other half of it is not built up to at all. Like it's completely different. Once they start dropping physics and philosophical quandaries, and the text gets considerably more populous in each chapter, then like you're in the second part of the series that is completely different from the first part. Like all the stuff that like Yukari can actually do with her abilities, that never comes up again because she's dead for the entire second half of the series. So it's weird to see like that kind of like slowly built up and then it's never actually used. I imagine that maybe in light novel form, maybe there would have been more of a sense of things actually ramping up between the two parts, but I have no idea. There were certain parts of this that just made me just kind of laugh because it was so, so weird and so let me talk to you about this quantum physics thought experiment that I know about. I'll give this series credit for actually knowing that Schrodinger's cat was proposed by Schrodinger to criticize the quantum theory at the time, and then they just kind of be like, but it turns out everyone rejected his thought patterns and then just kind of came up with their own explanations for it. There is a monologue at one point where Gaku is becoming more and more in tune with the entire universe that goes, are you familiar with the anthrocentric theory of the universe?
Like, no, good ma'am, I am not.
I started laughing.
It's so hard not to, because it's a series that is taking on these crazy concepts, but then you're reading it and you're like, in execution, you had an entire chapter dedicated to fucking magical girl mass murderer god lady. Like, there's no way for me to like. There's a level of it that you're like, all right, you understand how absurd this is at the same time that you're doing it, so you can't help but kind of get on board.
Yeah, and I mean, like, all the stuff at the beginning where it's like, this girl can fix people like machines, even if they're cut into pieces. She can also make her Gundam figurines come to life. You think that's the insane thing that's going to happen in the series, but no, that's like properly foreshadowed and built up. So you're like, yeah, okay.
By the end of the series, you're like, I forgot the robots were even alive. I'll be honest, it completely left my mind. There was too much.
So, I mean, I enjoyed the ride that I went on. I am still so taken aback by the bounds to which the series went that I'm still not really sure if it was good or not. I know for a fact, though, that probably a lot of you are going to try reading this and then be like, this just got stupid really quickly. So I totally understand, if you don't like this, but also totally understand if you do like it, and because of how out there it gets and what lengths it goes.
I've heard a couple people also mention that this series has kind of like somewhat of a legendary status when it comes to like sort of light novel adaptation stuff, and also just for Yuri stuff in general, I suppose. Sure. So it's I could definitely see why. I could see how this sort of series would be very influential in that manner. So I don't know. In my mind, I feel like most people can read this series and be like, wow, what a fun, cool series that's weird and weirdly dark, but like awesome. But I also would not blame somebody if they were like, they read like the start and they were just like, whatever. Or if they got to the parts where it starts getting really weird and they're like, I'm out. It'd be weird because I'm like, it's 18 chapters long. It's not that you're so far in. Why not just wrap it up? But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be like, if it wasn't for the podcast, I would have definitely gotten to the part where they started explaining Schrodinger's cat, and I'd be like, nah, I'm out. Look, I'm bad at science. I'm out. I'm in philosophy, physics, whatever the fuck this is. It's not me. I'm out of here.
I do wish that there had been more time spent like actually looking into the characters themselves. Tenjo, the other childhood friend of Yukari's, just kind of like just vanishes and isn't really relevant after a certain point. I do know that part of why there's not really a deep exploration of some of the characters is because the story is told from Gaku's point of view. Mm-hmm. And so the entire point is that she has become so disconnected from people that she doesn't actually understand or care about the emotions that drive them. So like, she understands how to manipulate Alice, for example, but she doesn't actually have sympathy for the fact that she was abused as a kid. And she also has grown apart from the parts of herself that she's like repressed in terms of her romantic intentions. There is a conversation she has with herself, which, she's talking to herself through her phone all throughout the series, where it's the first time that she learns that she has become romantically involved with Alice, and the Gaku that we are seeing in the present is like, that's gross. Yeah, you're such a deviant, and she's, an awful person. She's grossed out by the idea that she is involved with A, Alice, and B, a girl, when as time goes on, you very clearly see, like, yeah, she seems like she's just, repressing her sexuality.
Yeah.
But that's not her focus because she is so hell-bound on this mission that she has kind of forgotten the reason she's even on it to begin with. So it is, in a sense, both disappointing and totally understandable why the series has that shortfall. Like, it wouldn't really gel if she were to explore that side of herself more, because that's the character that she is by that point in the story. So,
All right. I don't know what else to say really on this
yeah.
point. As I said, like, I feel like there's going to be plenty of people who are going to read this series and be like, you guys didn't talk about this and talk about that. I'd be like, I was probably too dumb to pick up on this or really notice that, because I really don't get quantum physics, time travel storylines very much. But I enjoyed the ride that I went on, and I feel like most people would too.
Okay, so I hope that's the most mentally taxing review series that I've got to go on this year, because that was a bit of a
Nick, next we're reading.
Thank God it was a physics based series. Like, can you imagine something that was outside my wheelhouse?
I was like, Nick, we're reading Neon Genesis Evangelion next.
Oh no, not theology. Oh boy. All right, let's talk about My Hero Academia, chapter number 375, Platitudes. So we get a little bit of a flashback at the start of this series between Nagant and Chisaki, and essentially how he convinced her to let him come along on her snipe Deku and kill that boy mission, which was, I need you to do this so Nagant wanted him to come along so he could ID Deku for her, which I don't know how you miss Deku, but okay. But Chisaki says, okay, I'll do it on one condition, and she thinks he's going to say, like, well, I'm not going to take revenge for you. And he replies, no, I've got only one thing left. Bring me to my boss. Because apparently he wants to apologize to him. So we cut to the present, and Chisaki is freaking out about this. He's yelling from his rooftop perch over at Nagant, hey, take me to the boss! Which, she's kind of busy right now, dude. But, he's just had his arms amputated. I'm sure that he's totally mentally stable. He's fine. So Nagant gets her gun arm ready, and she transforms it into this weird swollen cannon thing. And she says while doing so to Deku, your hero education taught you to hate one thing above all else, no matter who the victim is. If your own screw gets him killed, that'll keep you up at night. And so she fires a big old bullet towards Chisaki, and she thinks to herself, okay, I'll just give him something else to have to think about, and that'll make him slow down, and then I'll finish the job. But before she can even think that thought, Deku comes slingshotting around a building using Black Whip, and he, I believe, knees the bullet out of the air. And we finally get a big explanation for how Fajin works. It turns out he's not only been swiping all of Spider-Man stuff, he swiped a Black Panther ability too, because he builds up kinetic energy through repeated movements, which can allow him to then store and release the energy in bursts. And so he's utilizing this Fajin ability in conjunction with One for All and centrifugal force from the whip snapping him around the building to generate a faux 100% burst of speed. So he dashes through the air with all of this built up speed and goes faster than the bullet and just kind of shoves Chisaki out of the way so the bullet misses him. Everything's fine.
I wish this had been his Gwen Stacy moment where he pushed Chisaki so hard he like broke his neck just hitting like a wall or something like that.
Oh no! Oh no, he's dead. Oh well, I better go fight Paul Giamatti.
Time to fight the rhino? Question mark.
Oh, they thought they were getting another movie, didn't they? So,
Nick, what are you talking about? The Sinister Six movie's gonna happen any day now.
But we showed off all that equipment.
There were vulture wings in there and other stuff. I think a Venom's symbiote.
And there was the person in the prison who wanted to know about Peter Parker. Remember?
That's the new one. That Sinister Six actually might happen.
Okay.
That was a Scorpion, yeah. Who knows? Hey, we're getting a Kraven the Hunter solo movie, apparently.
Sorry, I get my
you get your Sinister Six teases
mixed up. They really want that to happen, don't they? So Nagant is like, holy shit, how did he catch up to my shot? And then she realizes Hewitt was actually already shifting his trajectory as I was aiming and firing. Deku's not done. He now uses the black whips to get a hold on the building ledge. He just shot himself over so that he can, I guess, rebound back is what's going on here. So we get a explanation for how he executed this. It's not really important to me. He turned off a few quirks so he could focus on only using so many of them at a time, and that increased his efficiency. Okay, fine. Anyhow, he's still got one Black Panther suit leg full of built-up kinetic energy, so he uses that to propel himself back the direction that he came and launches a Manchester Smash at full 100%, and basically completely shatters Nagant's gun arm. And so he thinks, I've broken the barrel, so it's over. Can't finish me off. And Nagant's just kind of blown away by this whole performance, and she's like, geez, he recognized that guy that I was targeting was an enemy, and he still went and saved him. And as she's falling, because she's been beaten, basically, up at this point, when was it? When did the platitudes start making me want to puke? Because she was talking about, in reference to her bosses telling her to go assassinate people and then telling her, good job on killing those people.
You've made the world a safer place.
So she falls because I guess she's so beaten that her float quirk's not working anymore. She can't airwalk, I guess. Whatever. Deku catches her because he's a good boy. And he says that he realized, that shot you fired at Chisaki was off by a little bit. If you really were allied with All for One and his brand of evil, your very first shot would have hit my lower body and would have stopped me cold. You've known real darkness, so you gotta know there's a way to bring back the light. Okay, Deku.
All right, Sora from Kingdom Hearts.
Big old nerd. So he says to Nagant, hey, you should, join up with us. You're still a hero deep down. I know you are. And Nagant looks at Deku's arm, because he's pretty beat up from the whole experience. Yeah. And she thinks back on all the stuff that he did, all the stuff that he fought through, and still made sure to save the person trying to kill him and a former enemy. And she smiles up at Deku while thinking, wow, what a guy. You're the real deal. And she explodes! So it turns out All for One's a big asshole.
Wait, what? This guy?
So he says to... I don't know. He says to
himself, like bad guys do.
He says, the soul is far too fickle, which is why I added a failure clause to your contract. And he had turned her into a bomb with his quirk-granting ability somehow. So the bomb Nagant goes off. She's still in one piece somehow, because that's how bomb quirks work, I guess. But she's falling down again, and All for One, inside of her soul, I guess, maybe, because he granted her a quirk, maybe he's mocking her from within, I don't know, says, "To the very end you were just a tool to be used. Curse your blessing of a quirk if you must. Alas, the hapless, woeful Lady Nagan." He doesn't get to finish that sentence because Hawks is there, and he saves Nagan from falling. And a chapter.
I'm so confused. So, there's two things I have with this chapter.
Okay.
One is Deku's little speech, which is so hollow and worthless. Like, Lady God's like, there's real structural issues, like, with the way hero organizations have been instituted and sort of, like, grouped together in our society, and those problems run deep, and I've now brought those up to you, Deku. What will you do? And he's just like, you should be a good guy again. And that's like the end of the conference. Like, I know that we're probably not going to get the large scale, like, Deku, can you fix the systemic issues in hero society issues right here? But the fact that, like, it feels very unspecific to her, like his whole speech, it feels like it should have been another one of those platitudes that she should have been like, lame, like right afterwards, like, you suck.
What if she was, instead of going like, wow, you're the real deal, she was just kind of like, that was really lame and you don't seem to have a full grasp of the situation, but you seem like a nice kid.
Yeah. Second, I'm very annoyed if she is alive, because what the fuck was the point of blowing her up? All right, I really want to get to this. What the fuck did he do? Because somebody's like, oh, he implanted like a suicide quirk in her or something, so it blows up and it hurts her. And I was like, but the implication at the end is that Hawk showed up and grabbed her, and thus she's okay. So would the dangerous part been if she exploded and then fell? Is that the part that it's just one of those things of like, this didn't feel like you actually did have a failure clause in your contract at all for one. It feels like you just made something up at the last year. Oh, she fucked up. All according to plan. She'll explode now. Kaboom! And then you activated her Wily Coyote Dynamite quirk that just turns her skin tone a certain shade of like burned brown for a little bit, and then she'll fall down.
What if she had been like, yeah, I don't really trust this airwalk quirk, so I'm just gonna like snipe from a single perch, and then the bomb goes off and she's like, I fell 2 feet. Yeah. Personally, I would have probably been more annoyed if we had gone this sequence and then she had just died after we had spent so long getting to know her. But I totally understand your standpoint of like, what's the point of having her blow up if she's just gonna be okay afterwards?
Yeah, I was like, do it or don't. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here at this point.
We're establishing that All for One is a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, I did need that. I mean, I do actually kind of like that. He was just like, oh, I hired this assassin, she failed, so guess what? She's gonna die. I was like, yeah, I get it. He's an asshole. Like, and also, I don't really need a whole bunch of new characters in this series. So I have trouble keeping track of the ones we have.
Listen, I'll have you know that the 16th most important character in Class 1B is very essential to the story that's going to unfold in the next couple of years, okay?
Yeah, Otro's arc is coming right around the corner, guys.
He's in Class 1A.
Now, who cares?
Listen, all them Yui Kodai fans are going to have their day when she makes the thing small and or big. So
there you go. All right. I don't really have any other thoughts on this chapter. It was a cool execution of Deku's quirks. I like that part. It was pretty dope.
I like the point where he went zoom, zoom.
Yeah, zip, zip. That was pretty sweet.
All right. Speaking of zooming around.
Yeah, let's talk about Undead Unluck number 66. That is the truth. So we pick up right where we left off, where Shen has seemingly kind of gotten the upper hand on Feng and just says, you're strong, maybe the strongest in the world, but you know what? That's all you are. And Feng tries to start talking like, hatred does indeed make you, and he just gets punched in the face. And he's like, what the fuck? Why did that happen? And he even says it out loud. He's like, he just keeps getting punched in the face, basically. And he's like, wait a minute. a moment ago you could only change the direction of my attacks. How can now you control my leg movement? And Shen's just like, it's because you're trying to back down. So Untruth's reversing it and making you walk forward. You're afraid of us, and it's and her abilities negating it. And he's like, oh shit. He tries to play it off like, afraid? I see my body must recognize that you've done this, and I will have to defeat you or whatever. And Shen's like, it's not hatred. It's love. Stupid.
Yeah. There's a lot of really cute little touches in this, like how Mui and Shen are like, she's, like piggyback riding on him, and there's a lot of hand holding and stuff. Yeah. But it's like, Shen finally self-actualized, and he's, completed a big part of his character arc. So
yeah, he said, he's like, it wasn't despair or hatred that made me stronger. Instead, it was the one thing that saved me from it all, love. That is the truth. And they just deliver a sequence of punches that seemingly looks like it's taken out Fang. He's at least down on the ground. He's not unconscious, but he's like, you can band together and beat me all you want, but you will be helpless in the face of even more powerful individuals. You've strayed from the path of individual strength, which means you'll never be stronger than you are now. Absolute individual strength. And that leads us into the confrontation with Summer, who has finished transforming, and we get our big 2-page spread sort of introduction to Summer. Boom! You should understand the importance best for all. And we're like, yep, it's reached phase 2. But we have strong teammates, and who should show up at that point but Top and Chikara, who are like, hey, we're here, and I brought Chikara along. Top's
shoes have the word top written on the sole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This kid's lame. I just want everyone to know that.
In my mind, every time he shows up, the soundtrack from Sonic Adventure 2 plays in my head, so I'm always okay with him showing up. So they're like, hey, cool. They also brought Tatiana along, so they have a very strong group of people here. But then Apocalypse starts laughing, and he's just like, oh, Summer is in phase 2 already. You guys are done for. And Top had brought Apocalypse along. They were like, hey, it's probably better if I'm just carrying it, because that way no one can get to it, basically. Like, I'm probably the safest way to handle this at this point. So, makes sense. And Apocalypse just starts gloating, like, now that Summer has evolved, none of you can beat it. Summer has the highest attack power of all the 4 seasons UMA, so you just now must struggle and come to an end. And Top's just like, what do you mean we can't destroy it? Come on, talk. He's like, there's no way I would tell you about it, about how the scales on its stomach are now its core, and unless you destroy all of them at the same time, it'll continue to regenerate. Wait, what? Why did I say that? And, we used Untruth on him to force him to tell the truth. It's a great moment.
I don't know why Shen covers her eyes after that point, but he does, so...
Yeah. So there you go. And they're like, all right, so we have to destroy all the cores at once, but it's okay because we have a great team. And they basically just give a description of every person who's there. And it looks like we're going to get the big showdown with Summer now.
Yep.
Fang is not, presumably, like, he's not dead, so he may still pop up, and we may still find out what his ability is, but as of the moment, he seems to be down and out.
Seems like it's going to be a thing where he lives to fight another day, and maybe we'll find out later what he can do in full.
Yeah,
so.
Potentially. Good chapter, though. I think it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So, let's move over to Kaiju number 8. Chapter 36. So Kafka has been forced to fully transform in order to take on the...
I feel like it's impossible to say his name without saying his full name as Kikoru
Kafka
does
Hibino!
Every time.
Yes, Kikoru shouts out that name in distress at the start of this chapter too, yes. So he's been forced to fully transform into Kaiju number 8 in order to block a otherwise fatal blow from the Director General. But now that he's fully transformed, he starts to go pretty berserk because, so as he roars and just goes, rah, but really, really loud, like it's shattering like windows and walls loud. Um, Something has gone wrong. And Kafka is mentally like, I can't control myself. I can't control my body. And at this rate, I'm never going to be able to prove that I'm human. I'm acting just like a kaiju. And so in his mind space, he looks over and he sees this kind of parasitic kaiju core within him going, kill, kaiju, kill. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes after the director general and is just insanely fast and unpredictable, growing, jet turbines in his limbs and stuff to attack quickly. And the director general dodges some of his attacks, and then he just snaps his entire spine around so that he can attack more quickly. And the director general is just like, he's self-mutilating himself so that he can attack more quickly, and then just using regeneration as a failsafe from there. So, yeah, it's going pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Kafka again tries to stop himself, but Kaiju number 8 launches a JoJo flurry of punches at the director general, who's just kind of forced to turtle and try and block. And he's just like, I'd be dead if not for this shield. He kind of launches out a kick to trip up Kaiju number 8, and then tries to launch a full force rocket punch. And some dude with an eye patch is like, "Oh, thing about why it's a powerful punch." But he thinks that he has pierced through the core, but instead, Kaiju number 8 ejected its core and grew another Kaiju number 8. Like you do.
Yeah. Hey, that's just it's called budding, I believe.
It's very similar to the Chainsaw Man thing. I just ripped out my heart and threw myself back down to earth.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
So this new Kafka Kaiju number 8 body keeps on punching the director general. They do like a cross counter thing. Their punches deflect into each other, which causes like the entire room around them to start crackling and crumbling. And everyone's like, how the hell is this happening? This is ridiculous. And Kikoru's like, this is what happens when you cross time and have two identified kaiju. Kaiju number 2 and number 8 clashing head to head. And there's this big 2-page spread of like the two monsters facing down against each other instead of, two dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And then some guy who's with Kikoru is like, this is kind of odd. If the Director General really planned on killing him, he would have been better off taking him out with his first attack while number 8 was in human form. It almost seems as if he's purposely pushing number 8 to test him. Ooh. And then he's like, I don't know why he's doing that, though. So,
yeah.
Only moderately helpful.
Yeah, well, everyone's just like, who knows? And in his mind, he's just like, oh, I like this kaiju guy so much. I hope he's okay.
Kikoru thinks that maybe he's giving Kafka Hibino, a chance to survive.
Is this like a character detail I just never picked up on, that she never refers to Kafka as anything but his full proper name?
I believe that she has done that the entire time that, they've known each other, but it's just that we haven't seen her shout his name in distress multiple times in a row before. Yeah. So, Kaiju number 8 strikes what appears to be a very, very bad blow to the Director General's stomach. Like, it caves in his armor over his ribs, and it looks like he's gonna get killed off by this thing. The bald guy is like, his fortitude is starting to surpass Isao's estimations. Also, Kafka's not doing so good either. He kept on thinking to himself, my body's going to give out if I keep on doing this. So,
yeah. It's a good the chapter. I mean, I guess we have to see exactly what's happening, but I do also like the idea of like, oh, Kafka's body kind of changes when he's fighting like these weapons, because to him they're like kaiju, and it's kind of a cool visual. Plus, somewhere out there's a Kaiju number 8 wiki that just got to update its Kaiju number 2 page. It's like, here's what Kaiju number 2 look like.
It seems as though there is a hint that the kaiju that is occupying Kafka is like an anti-kaiju kaiju,
Mm.
uh, which it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But maybe they won't get along, but then they'll bond over the fact that they had the same mother figure in their lives, and then they'll like still not really like each other, but they'll like do like a cool like fist pound thing with their swords,
Yeah.
and yeah, so.
All right, let's talk about World Trigger, Nick.
World Trigger.
Let's talk about bedroom assignments. The chapter.
Chapter 208, the away mission test, part 6. Oh my god. This is Ashihara Sensei doing this on purpose? Like, is he trying to separate the real World Trigger fans from just the casuals?
There's a couple people like, I'm done. And then like 5 chapters from now, he's going to be like, all right, everybody left good? All right, cool. We're going to go do the away mission now.
So Osamu's team, Suwa team, inspects the whole facility. They find that there are only 2 bedrooms. One is a 2-bedroom bedroom. One is a 1-bed bedroom. Then there is a 4th bed, which is underneath a weird, creepy hatch thing, which nobody wants to use, and Katori's just like, I'm not. She says, sorry, specifically, sleeping in a coffin. Miss me with that.
She's so hip and cool. Look at her. She has all the lingo.
But then they point out, like, well, even if we use the freaking box bed thing, there's only 4 beds. And then it turns out eventually that, like, the leader of the team gets their own room so that they can, masturbate in private. I don't know.
Well, it's the operator gets their own room.
Operator gets their room.
Yeah.
So they can, yes, the operator gets their own room so that they can actually write up reports on everyone without worrying about the try-on for the facility running out in the middle of them writing reports for the day. So, and then they're like, and we've got food and a kitchen, and there's only so much food that we actually have, and even if we eat lightly, we don't have enough to last the whole week. What's with that? Oh, it turns out we have ingredients to make our own stuff. We can make bread, but the vendors are really weird and slow for some reason that is still not explained in this chapter just yet, but they're like, okay, we can make enough bread to actually last the whole week, so we're good.
I guarantee they just fuck something up too. I guarantee it, because Osamu like turns the dial and they're like, well, we'll just crank it to max and come back later. There's definitely going to be some like, oh, that was draining your try-on the entire or something. There's going to be something to just fuck them up on that.
Then they find out that they need to pass a bunch of questions and turn them in. And there's also a way to play League of Legends with the other teams.
You're not wrong. They definitely are like, yeah, it's not a real fight, but it's like a virtual fight we'll have with each other.
So Katori takes the stance because she really doesn't want to answer the questions, but she brings up the very logical thing of like, well, everyone can actually answer the questions, so there's only so much advantage you can actually gain over any other team by just answering questions. But if you participate in the battle sim exercises, then that's a way to gain a huge advantage over the other teams, because it's all the points are won by the winning team in each of these simmed battles. So that's the argument that she makes, but they're still like, you still have to freaking answer your questions. Like some of these are required, and then we've got extra ones that we've got to try and get as well. Then that's when the operator thing comes up with the bed. Katori's like, I want my own room! And then it turns out that they have to rotate who uses the coffin bed thing. So like all of them have to use it at some point. And then we get an introduction to what some of the questions are. And some of them are like, what are all these countries on this map? But some of them are like, what would you do in this scenario? So it's like there's no correct answer to certain questions, basically. So they go over this, and then just as Katori is getting too bored to answer any more goddamn questions, they get a special assignment, and Sua forwards it to the rest of the team, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" And that's the end of the chapter.
There are some details that we jumped over that I do like. There's specifically kind of brought up at some point where Katori's just like, why the fuck am I even doing this? I'm not going on the away mission. And they're just like, why not? She's like, because if my team's not going, I'm not going. And the only A rank team or B rank teams that can go are you guys, basically. So it's like, what's even the point of me doing all of this? So I do like a lot of those details, but it is great that we end on like maybe the shittiest fucking way you could end with them. Be like, we've got a special assignment. Click to open document. Huh? And it's fucking credits. It's like, hey, we'll see you guys in July. Like, fuck you, goddammit. I want to see it now.
Yeah. It is an interesting fold to Katori's personality, because like you definitely got the impression before this point that she maybe cared about one person on her squad, but was otherwise very self-centered. So to hear her say like, yeah, I would only go with my own squad is interesting to learn. So
yeah. It's a very funny chapter. You said it best. You're just like, is Ashihara fucking with us? Because so much of the chapter is just like, all right, here's how the beds work. Here's how we're gonna ration out food. Like, holy shit! All right,
we are 2/3 of the way through day one.
All right, Nick. Let's talk about Eden Zero real quick. Chapter 146. Before we part. And this is Laguna's cover, and Laguna's special, like, stat block is stiletto heels, which, to be fair, he's rocking some pretty good ones right there. 5 out of 5 stars, you know? Good for him.
I don't think that shirt goes with the rest of the outfit, but otherwise.
It's all very edgy, so I guess it all works. Whatever, I don't know.
It's just the checkerboard X in the middle of the shirt that throws me.
Well, here's the thing, and this is actually something I read about recently. Laguna is actually a huge fan of ska. So Laguna is the name of the lead singer of Real Big Fish. I think of a ska band off the top of my head. And that's what this is a reference to. So he uses those to skank it, which is tough, considering he's wearing 5-star heels. But he does it.
Also, if he skanks too hard, then his heels get stuck on the straps dangling from his pants. And
It's a dangerous life, but that's what Laguna does. He's pretty cool like that. So we open with Jin, who's shown up, and he sees a body of like a pile of robots and Shiki underneath. He's like, "How did someone survive an explosion like that?" And Shiki's crying. I don't know why we cut away from that scene, so we can cut over to Homura, who is activated overdrive and essentially is won, but she hasn't officially won yet. Milani will jump forward and attack a bunch, and then Homura will just defeat her.
Yeah, you know, it was very essential that we pad out this fight by 5 more pages.
Yeah,
so.
And Homura gives like a whole thing where she's just like, "You lied. Androids do have lives because they have souls." And Milani starts crying because she's like, "I know androids have lives, and what Prince Shur is doing is wrong. I actually loved Saika, the robot who was killed, and he was like a grandfather to me. I couldn't do anything." And you're just like, why are we getting this now? Who gives a fuck? You're never going to show up again.
This is the best part to give a villain some backstory. Well, they've already lost, so let me tell you why they weren't all bad. Okay.
She even like, she's like, "Why am I telling you this?" And Homura's like, "Because mirrors reflect one's truth." And I'm like, why did the mirror person? Doesn't make sense. Also, why would the mirror person not know this? Anyway, we cut back, and again, I don't know why we didn't just stay on the scene, because it's Shiki responding to why he's crying is a flashback to right before the robot exploded. All the other robots jumped on top of him and basically shielded him with their bodies, because they're like, we don't want to die, but we're programmed to self-destruct, so you care about robots. You're not like Master. Let's protect you. And even the robot that's about to explode is like, I don't want to die. And then he explodes. And Shiki cries because he's like, they were protecting me. And then he runs back to Eden Zero. We get there. We see Sister and Hermit are really broken up. Like, Sister's like missing a leg, and Hermit has one of her arms ripped off. Pretty gruesome scene. They're just like, wait, what happened here? And Hermit's just like, he took Witch. And we end the chapter with Shura being evil, and he's chained a robot up, and he's like, come and play. We're friends, aren't we? And I've heard some people try to argue, like, discuss this. They're like, why did he take Witch? And the consensus is like, there's something about her that's essential to his plans. Or two, she's the one who looks the most seductive when chained up or something. Like, I don't know. But that's how the chapter ends. You're like, all right. Cool
Or
beans.
he'll try and torture her, but then she'll just be like, this is nothing because I'm the, super S&M figure.
That's the thing. It couldn't be Sister.
Yeah.
She would be all about this, Even
Oh,
though
right, it's Witch.
Yeah, it's
sorry,
Witch.
I got them confused because Witch doesn't have her mask on right
Yeah.
now. So anyway,
it's just, it was the moment where it's like, Grandpa, I loved him, and you're just like,
I don't want to die.
It's like you couldn't have picked a worse time for this. Oh,
I
man.
love how all the villains are either unrepentantly evil or are actually just good people who happen to be on the wrong side, and they'll totally just be good people the next time we see them. There's no in between.
Yeah.
Like, there can't be anyone who is a complicated villain who is still just an out-and-out villain. They have to be all evil or just misguided, and they need to be Shiki's friend.
Yeah.
Like, it's
like, I stop and I think, and I'm like, how much more invested and interested would I have been in a Milani Hamura fight if we had learned that Milani had complicated, conflicted feelings about what she's doing and the death of Saika prior to this? Like, this, like, it really changes everything. But it's like, who gives a shit? She's fucking beaten. We'll never see this character again, probably.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it is really, it's one of my big pet peeves when it comes to a lot of shonen action is the last minute villain sympathy card thing, when it's like, they would have been so much more interesting if you had done a little bit of this before. I understand, you want people to not sympathize with them too much during the actual fight, and then you really push it home after they've been beaten and you can feel sad when they're dying or whatever. But this was just like, she had zero character. Oh, I've been defeated. I felt bad about my grandpa figure being killed. Also, he was my grandpa figure.
Yeah.
You didn't know that.
Turns out he was like a grandfather to all of us.
Oh, boy. But it's okay. We're past Eden Zero, which means that I have nothing else negative to say about any of the series we're talking about today.
Mick, we're talking
Anyway,
about ITLC now.
Fuck. So, Chapter 18, Demand. Sorry, I just remembered how this chapter ends. So, Mar admits, yes. She's like, where did you learn? I'm sorry, the way this is fucking worded, this gets me so bad. Where did you learn that I'm Garu Kaizuka's granddaughter, Mamie Kaizuka? Who talks about themselves this way? So, Ms. Iowi just says, like, well, you frequently target his work, so I figured there was a reason behind it, so I looked up some stuff on him. And so we see that, like, while Sakan was sleeping, because lifting weights was not involved, she was looking up some stuff, and so she saw the article about Garo and his family, and she's like, wait a minute, look at this. And so she's like, pictured with him was his family, and there was his granddaughter, which was you. And I could tell it was you because you have the same hair color, I guess. So,
Nick, how would you possibly tell? Yeah, there was a picture of me that long ago, but so much of me has changed since then. Like, there's a texture effect that's now placed over my hair that makes it look like it shimmers.
Fortunately, you were wearing the same earrings. And Mara's like, yeah, that was when I was 10. I don't look anything like that now. I'm like, yeah, she's got a point. Like, her hairstyle differently, and it's all gleamy now and stuff. And I was like, I think your eyes, the bridge of your nose, and your earlobe still have traces of what you looked like back then. Okay, fine. She's crazy. That's how she gets it. Fine, whatever.
Yeah.
And she says, as long as I have love, I can tell no matter how many years pass. Don't say you fell in love with her as a 10-year-old.
Oh no, it's We Never Learn all over again.
So, but she admits, I wasn't 100% sure, so I narrowed my research to your family, including Mr. Garo's son, who was also a painter. He self-published a single art book, Mart. And the cover model was his own daughter. And so it was difficult. And she's like, I had a hard time getting my hands on this because it had a small print run. And because he wasn't as famous as his father was, and he passed away not long after the book was published. And you're the Phantom Thief Mar for your father, aren't you? And so Mara's just like, yes, I wanted to be my dad's greatest masterpiece. And she flashes back to 6 years ago after she modeled for that cover.
She looks nothing like she does now, Nick. What are you talking about? That could be a completely different character.
Well, her hair is not shiny. But
yeah, again,
is the same.
They just didn't put a texture over her hair to make it look like it shines.
So she's just like, "Can I go now, Dad?" After posing, and so she's gonna leave, and she says, "Hey, make sure to take care of yourself and everything." And he says, "Well, I haven't put the finishing touches on it. This painting of you will help me gain Father's approval for sure this time, because you're the world's most beautiful girl. So in theory, that will make this the world's most beautiful painting." And she's just like, "Okay, God, that would be creepy to me and stuff." But Dad had his mind polluted by him. And we see Garo looking over the painting of his own granddaughter and say, repulsive.
Gross. Ew. Girls.
And so his son's like, but I've captured so much of her beauty. And Garo says, therein lies the issue. Love creates false images. It conveniently beautifies the subject. Paintings done through love are not truly beautiful. Their beauty is a sham. So he's a great artist. So,
also, sure. The sky's not purple, so stupid.
And he says, love dulls one's brush. Never love anyone, not even your own child.
I birthed you into existence out of pure hate and rage against the world. You have no mother. Your mother is anger.
So Mar tried to reassure her dad, and she's like, you just have to prove him wrong, have a solo exhibit. And she says in narration, seeing my dad paint to gain the man's recognition was a sight I couldn't bear to watch, but things weren't so simple. And so he just kept on throwing himself into his work after that point. And then Garo died. And Mar was just kind of like, yeah, I felt kind of relieved because now I felt like he was going to be free. They'll never contaminate him again. And then he hung himself.
Yeah.
Because he realized this would mean that he could never earn his father's approval because he died before he could earn it. Yay! So Mar found her dad's hanging corpse. Yay!
I want but this is in the past, so I want an origin story, in the background. You just hear somebody like, free protein bar on the ground. This is gonna change my life. It's Sagon, just to make sure he was around.
Oh boy. So she then looked through her father's artwork. All of his pieces had been defaced except for one. The painting of me was nowhere to be found. Did he throw it away? No. He would never. That was a symbol of his love. It must be out there somewhere. I wanted to believe. Believe that he left his symbol of love behind for me. And she says, I want to find it, and I want to make that painting his greatest masterpiece. And to do that, I myself must become even more beautiful. And so that's why she becomes the Phantom Thief Mar, so that she can make herself the most beautiful that she can possibly be through growing her reputation and accomplishing beautiful things. And eventually she developed her reputation that way. And so in the present, she admits, half the reason I stole into face paintings was as revenge against Garo Kaizuka. I stole other painters' works to make sure no one connected the dots, but you figured it out anyway. And then I was like, oh, okay. And that's why you revealed your face afterwards. So then you could find the painting that by using your own face as a wanted poster. So Mar says, yes, I collected followers. If I told them that a painting of me existed, then they'd do anything to track it down. That painting my dad made, it'll be the greatest masterpiece sought after by all. Even I admit it's trite, a truly trite motive, which is why I don't plan on getting caught yet. Not until I find that painting. And she's like leaning over Aoi with her gun pointed in her face. And Aoi just glares up at her and says, don't call it trite. If your heart demands something, you should be the last person to deny it. And Mara is a little taken aback by this, but then she says, you truly are a beautiful little lady. But now, it's time to say goodbye. Don't chase after me, Ms. Detective. Which she says right before shooting the gun, so...
Well, she definitely unloaded it into something else, because although it would be hilarious if she was like, don't come after me, and then shot her in the fucking forehead. Don't go anywhere as you chop off their neck.
All right, good.
That's what I thought.
So, as far as chapters of I Tell C go, this actually makes a lot of sense, and I kind of dug it. And if this had been part of a much better series, I would have actually probably quite enjoyed this as an explanation for how this, criminal got to this point. And, in typical fashion for this series, makes them out to be more sympathetic than they probably deserve to be made out to be. Mm-hmm. So I don't really have a lot to say about it because, yeah, there are little bits of it that are like, well, that's kind of stupid and way over the top, but it was fine.
Again, this is probably the villain that we should have opened the series tackling, because it's a lot easier to justify why this person is going around stealing paintings of her shitty grandfather and defacing them, as opposed to like, I used to cut off people's hands because my mom's gone or something like that. Like it's a lot easier of an uphill climb that way.
And now I'll redeem myself by saving you. I've murdered dozens of people.
Countless people have died by my hatchet.
Yeah, so... Okay.
Yeah.
Chapter 46 of Magu-chan Guide to Destruction, Special Lecture at the Holy Knighthood Branch Office. So, Izuma is a dumb dummy. So we need to have a study cram session with all of the gods there to help him learn things, including Magu wearing a motorboard. So,
yeah, damn straight. Happy for him.
I'm not sure what the device is that Magu's got. Not Magu, but Nabutaku. It might be an abacus, though, which is pretty silly. So, the reason that they're doing this is because the one teacher who is part of the Chaos Cult is going to horribly punish anyone who doesn't get at least a 30 on all their exams, and they won't be able to attend club activities. So, and he is laughing evilly when he makes this announcement, which is not weird at all. So they need to help Izuma pass. The girls have gone off into their own study group to help out Yuika, who is the worst student. And so Ren's like, God damn it, why am I stuck with freaking Izuma? He's so stupid and I hate him because I don't like him getting close to Ruru. Typical stuff. They test out Izuma. He's not very good. He just does not know anything because he's dedicated his entire life to fighting chaos gods, and also he can defy the laws of physics and science with magic. So he's not very good on, what that stuff is. So the gods take turns trying to teach him stuff. So like Magu's like, I shall understand the lowly human studies, and he opens up a book and he's like, the content is of such an inferior level, I cannot even decipher what the questions are asking. So he's so far beyond the material that he's actually stupid, So
Yeah.
Uneris is there. We almost made it to 3 chapters without her.
Look, I'm not saying Uneris is a problem, but I enjoyed this chapter significantly less than the past couple, and she was in it, so...
Yep.
I mean, what am I gonna... Actually, the chapter's fun, but...
She is also terrible at teaching because of the whole she just uses magic stuff. So Nuputaku's up, and he tries to act all smart because he's got a pair of glasses, which he adjusts like a super smart person does.
The best shot of the entire chapter. He's so fucking smug. It's great.
I guess it's time that I took the floor. And so his way of teaching Izuma is just going to be, I'll just be somewhere with all the answers, and I'll use my telepathic power frenzied whisper to tell you the answers. I mean, it sounds like a really solid plan to me, admittedly.
Jackie brings up a good point. That isn't even where Nuputaku's eyes are. Why is he wearing glasses?
So that he can adjust them the way a smart person does. But Izuma is completely against this idea because he's too pure and goody-goody. And he's like, I'll master my studies with my own power. So he refuses to, do anything except, just like study his ass off. But hours later, he's still only getting like a 13 on the practice test. Ruru comes in and she starts like offering to help out Izuma with his studies, which of course makes Ren mad. But then after Ruru leaves, Ren's just like, why the hell am I, freaking here in the first place? Why am I here with this guy? He's such an asshole. And he starts to have like Angel Uneris and Devil Uneris on his shoulder telling him to do 2 different things. And he's like, if I don't help him, then he won't be able to come to the occult club, which means he won't be able to hang out with Ruru anymore. But then after he considers this, he asks Izuma, hey, what do you think about Ruru? And we cut away from there. 2 weeks later, Izuma gets results back of the test, and he managed to just barely pass. And so all that hard work has paid off, and he's got Ren to thank for it, because Ren really helped him out. And he's like, yeah, I didn't really do anything special. He's bad at memorizing things, so I just adjusted how I taught him the information, which was essentially using the gods as props to demonstrate different scientific principles. And so Ruru's like, oh, wow, that was really insightful of you. And, I guess that you guys are closer now. And Ren doesn't really answer her, but he thinks about when he asked, hey, what do you feel about Ruru? And Izuma was just a very, nice kid about it and said, she's a strong human that I cannot hold a candle to. I have the utmost respect for her. It's like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And Ren concludes from this, and he says this to Ruru. He's annoying, but he's not a bad guy. So Izuma offers to, repay him somehow. And he says, you're my teacher now. Let me call you master. And of course, Ren's just like, no, stop, no. And then we cut over to the Chaos Cult teacher, who is just like, Izuma has avoided a failing grade. All according to plan. I've done it, Lord Muskar. I took one ignorant, foolish human and guided him along the path to enlightenment. And there's just a little narration caption that says the Chaos Cult is very committed to education.
I do honestly really like that as the end, that this entire stupid plan, like this entire kind of dumb chapter was ultimately just like the educator being like, I wanted the students to learn. It's like, I don't know. It's just so dumb and honest. I like it. Like there wasn't like an evil ulterior motive. He's just like, success! A student has bettered themselves.
My evil teaching ways.
I don't know. It's pretty adorable.
Yeah, this chapter wasn't as good as the past couple that we've had from Magu, but it was okay,
Yeah.
I guess.
That's a good way of saying it.
Nine Dragons Ball Parade. Chapter 16. The Black Dragon takes off.
Yep, that's what it does. It's going to take off out of this magazine in about 4 weeks.
No, what are you talking about? Just because it's doing terribly in volume sales and it's in the back of the magazine every week, there's no reason to believe that it's going to be it's on out the door as soon as new manga hit Shonen Jump.
And there's already now 2 other sports manga basically in the magazine between Blue Box and High School Family, which has basically just become a sports manga.
Yeah, it turns out that the whole thing about Blue Box is that it's just actually a sports manga.
Yeah.
So, by the way, there's a problem if we're going to end this series, which is the baseball team doesn't have 9 members yet. Just kidding, now it does.
I love it. Like fucking Jeff, Chuck, and Hugh show up, and they're just like, "Can we join the team?" It's like, "Yep, slap, slap. You'll be the bench."
Well, no, 2 of them have to be starters because
That's
they
what I
need 2
mean.
more outfielders.
Yeah, that's why I like. It's like 2 of them join, and then there's like one guy like, "Hey, you're gonna be the person Corinne's going to talk to about the game, or at least you would have if we got the time to play any."
And they play some practice games, and they're winning some practice games, and we go through April and May and June, and now it's July. This is how years progress.
Mm-hmm. This is how natural time would progress when a series does not have any looming deadlines ahead of them.
They're going to play a game against Kugajima, and it's hot out. Oh boy, it's July. And we get introduced to Kugajima with all of its memorable characters, who all have the same mean eyebrows. And they're like, those Kokuryuzan guys don't stand a chance against us. We're gonna win. And all the people have come out in support of Kugajima, and they're like, yeah, rallies and drums and woo, we're gonna go kick those Kokuryuzan guys' asses. And the Kokuryuzan team has like a really ominous walking down the game tunnel walk up, and we don't get we only see people in profile. We don't see their faces or anything like that. And everyone's like, we're ready. And Tsubaki rushes out to greet his adoring fans, and he's like, it's me, the one you've all been waiting for. And everyone's like, they're the away team. We have no idea who that is.
That would have been a way funnier line if somebody had actually said that. I know it's the implication, but it's a great line if like somebody just be like, you know, we're the away team, right?
Tsurugi grabs him by the ear because he's being embarrassing and stuff.
Yeah.
Nervous boy is nervous. That's his character trait that we've been able to establish so far.
There were no larger implications, by the way, to him Googling, is Kokuryuzan going to be okay? He was just like, oh, is the thing going to explode?
Yeah. Good teamwork guy is encouraging good teamwork. And Ryudo says, we're in good form while looking relaxed. Okay. Their opponents are like, what's their deal? And everyone's like, the time has come for us to begin our journey to the Koshien. Check out our starting lineups for this matchup. We're going to need to remember the batting order, okay? This will be very important to memorize. So they start to play.
By the way, I want to note something real quick. I was really on board with Kokuryuzan's uniforms at first until you see it from behind. And where their number is just a big white square with their number on it. And I was like, man, you really fucked up a pretty dope aesthetic with that fucking number placement.
Yeah. Like, with the awesome kanji on the front stuff, there should be, like, really curved, ornate numbers on instead of
just in white. I don't know why you needed to put a black number on top of a white box.
I don't know. Maybe because it's just much easier to mass produce the jerseys and then just slap labels on them.
I guess, yeah. Maybe it's just like a sticker, essentially.
Yeah. Ryudo's a good pitcher. Woo! Fastballs. Woo! Woo! Hey! Other people are talented too. Woo! Tsubaki's good leadoff batter, and he's good shortstop. And Tsurugi, he hits the balls good. And Kokuryuzan, oh, they won 8-0. Yeah! I'm so glad we memorized that starting lineup. Man, I'm so glad that we got that payoff to cleanup hitter catcher Kihara fourth in the lineup. It was very essential to learn that guy's name. So
Yeah, we had to be introduced to these guys because Dick, these are important characters. In fact, you might even say this might have been a significant matchup if this series didn't have about 4 weeks to win baseball. So you know, it's maybe these characters had a lot of deep layers. Maybe one of them had a robot that was like a grandfather to them, but we didn't know until after the game when one of them said, "They're like, my robot grandpa's dead, and I'm sad."
it would have been recurring opponents like the NASA shuttles or something like that. It's like, oh, yeah, we got that really big game out of the way, but they're still gonna, be kind of like off in the background. We'll meet them again eventually down the road. Yeah. Down the road.
Down the line. We're rivals. Even though we crushed them 8-0, we're rivals.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that. Yeah.
That's that.
It's kind of hard to get. It's kind of hard to be attached to this series anymore.
What do you mean? It's gonna be around forever, Nick. Forever.
Forever. Dr. Stone.
Time to get stoned.
Z equals 199 super alloys.
I fucking forgot about this chapter.
This chapter goes almost as quickly, honestly, as the 9 Dragon's Ball Parade chapter. So yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Zeno has joined the party, and he's still very evil looking. Yep. So they start whipping up some devices. He makes a thing to cool the air in order to apply voltage to something with argon gas in it. I don't know how this freaking stuff works, but yeah, they also go around. They're hunting for freaking ore deposits in the mountains using a Geiger counter. Hooray! So that's what he was creating. They grab some ore from the mountains with, of course, their muscle team digging into the mountain while Chrome hunts around for stuff using the detector. Then they raise the Perseus from the sea after they've collected some ore, and Kaseki has all of 2 panels to be really, really upset about the Perseus being sunk and rusted over, and then saying, "Don't worry, we'll revive it better than ever!" And then everyone's tearing it apart because they need the scrap metal for other stuff.
Aww. Poor Kaseki.
Yeah. And Senku explains that by using all this metal, they can combine it with other stuff in order to create super alloys, which are portrayed as a giant mecha.
Yeah.
And
its initials are DR, which I assume is spelling doctor.
I believe so.
But no one is a doctor.
Zeno's a doctor.
Is it? I guess it's his city, so I guess that's why. That's why it's kind of an evil-looking robot. It's all coming together. I was like, is it supposed to be spelling itself? Where's the S? And I was looking all sorts of places. Weirdly, a long time at the crotch, which is something I'm going to have to unpack later. But why is this robot so hot to me?
So, then they start kind of walking through what they're going to make from the metal from the ship, which is they're taking iron and then tossing in broken bits of chrome, which causes Suika to very briefly freak out because she thinks that they're going to throw chrome into this boiling pot of molten metal. But they're like, no. Like, chrome, like bits of chrome. And from this, they are able to create stainless steel, which of course will not corrode or rust. So, hooray. And they're like, okay, what can we make with all this stuff? And Senku says, from this, we can make canned food! And everyone's like, okay.
Who cares? Like,
but they make a bunch of canned food.
Yeah.
And also, they make knives and stuff. And so Kohaku realizes, oh, okay, so with all this stuff, that means we can actually stop worrying about population control. we'll have enough food to supply everyone now that we have this technology. And Chrome said, yeah, we also need this stuff for the rocket ship too. So they start reviving more people. They revive pretty much everyone from Xeno's group except Stanley.
Which means the boring characters no one gave a shit about. MMA girl and catsuit girl.
Yes. Look at how... That's gotta be uncomfortable, okay? They're going out to different sides.
Yes.
Like, it's a catsuit.
Uh-huh.
Like, it can't be comfortable. That's okay. So they kind of bring everyone up to speed on what they're doing, and Xeno is like, yes, join us and stuff. Fortunately, we're just kind of like skipping past all the dialogue that would happen here. It's all just, dialogue-free panels and stuff. And so we get a little bit of a powwow between Senku and Ryusui and Xeno about what they need to do. And so Xeno proposes, shall we divide and conquer? I craft the rocket engine, you build the new Perseus. And Senku says, yeah, we don't really have time on our side. So the two science pros can't work together, buddy. So they agree to this. Xeno looks at some of the canned food and he says, the stainless steel we've made is only level 1. If we have any hope of reaching Y-Man via spacecraft, we require far superior superalloys. And he makes this bizarre contraption that will convert nickel to gas and purify it, which will allow them to create even better superalloys. Don't breathe it in. It creates a fatal toxin. It is gaseous metal. So, yes. So while they're going over this and how freaking dangerous this is and how, a gas mask wouldn't stop it, he says, reaching for outer space will require more resources as we continue across our scientific roadmap. Poisons and other horrors are inevitable, and lesser minds are sure to criticize us for dabbling with such forces. This journey demands a villain, and I shall happily accept that role. A science user of darkness.
It's the most fucking extra bullshit. I love it so much because the darkness is just like, I'm working with stuff that's kind of dangerous. Like, he's not like experimenting on children or something like that. Like, he's just like, I'm working with chemicals that could be toxic.
Someone thaw out Stanley. He needs his boy with him, okay? He's acting out, and he needs someone to assure him that he is just fine without pretending to be a science user of darkness, okay?
I want like someone else to be like, we already figured out sulfur, so wouldn't that have made us dark scientists? He's like,
no, a gas mask can block that.
Yeah, this is darker than dark.
I don't know. Have you seen like the creepy like monster woman form that the gas takes? I don't think you have.
Yeah.
So she's all pretty and then she's scary.
Yeah. Ooh. He's like, all women are scary to me. I'm like, oh, my poor baby.
What? Nothing. God, I miss Stanley. But then he goes on to say, I shall ignore the bleating of the mindless masses, leaving me free to commit to the necessary science. Meanwhile, Senku will be your science user of light, the one who leads you all into a bright future. And everyone's just kind of like, I don't know, Senku's a little bit weird. But I feel like he, delivers this entire monologue.
I'm sorry, Replica brings up a great point. Senku made guns.
Oh boy. So we get a little bit more of a montage as Chrome is reflecting like, oh man, we're bringing together different types to create the strongest possible team. It's just like making a super alloy. Yeah, okay, you big nerd. Yeah, you're right.
And how better to execute this than showing us our two favorite characters from different sides, Taiju and MMA girl working together.
Don't you dare besmirch Taiju by saying that about him.
It's like the idea of like my two favorite characters from opposite sides working together, Taiju and the girl who knew MMA.
And we wrap up the chapter with Kohaka saying, now people from all over the globe can come together as one. Super Ally City has been founded. Look at these multi-ethnic people. Which is a little bit weird. But okay. So now they're going to fight against the power of the Fantastic with a scientist of darkness and of light. Okay, guys.
It's so extra. I love it.
Yeah. So this was a Dr. Stone chapter. Hooray!
Absolutely. It's very funny, but yeah, good times. All right, Nick. Let's talk about Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 65, Mash, Burn Dead, and Running in the Rain. And we get a cover page with Cell War looming over a sleeping Mash. Aw.
He's got a little nightcap on. Also, his nightcap matches the pattern of his sheets, which is extra adorable.
Yeah.
So.
I forget this character's name, but it's the guy who I believe we met back when we were introduced to all the Canes, and he's flying around and just thinking, what's the relationship between Mr. Wahlberg and Innocent Zero? And it's explained, society as we know it was built by one great magic user, the architect that would become the divine visionary. His power was, in a word, divine. His name was Adam. And in life, there was none who could stand up to his dark magic. Apparently, Wahlberg and Innocent Zero were Adam's strongest pupils. Now, the shot has 3 characters. One of them looks like Wahlberg, and that's the one in the center. So I don't know if the idea is there's also a third pupil or if the third figure is supposed to be Adam. It's hard to exactly tell. But we get that shot. And it's like, oh, does that mean they're equal in power? And it's like, yes. If they launched an assault knowing they've got an ace up their sleeve, if Wahlberg loses this, then we cut over to the fight between the two of them up in the sky. And Innocent Zero says, are you happy to see me as I am to see you? And removes his hood, and he has no face. It is a terrifying visual that reminds you again, like, oh, right, the artist for Mashle was a really good artist.
He's the Slender Man. Look out!
Yeah.
Ooh.
Wahlberg's like, oh my, and I do like that. I was like, that's not nice. You look at me like I'm some kind of monster. How about this? Would you still call me a friend if I look like this? And their face turns into cubes and then reassembles into some kind of face. Although they appear to have more than 3 lines. Now, 2 of those would have shown up from activating their. I don't know. I don't think we have a better name for it than Bankai, but. It's an interesting thing. Although I guess those could just be aesthetic. Who knows? And Wahlberg's like, you've abandoned your humanity. And he's like, oh no, I'm more human than everyone else. I have very human desires. There's no limit to my greed. Why, today I expect to bring Mash Burn Dead back. And also to kill you. And cast the spell Times, the Living Dead. And we get a 2-page spread of a bunch of dark magic stuff happening and bleeding clocks and a coffin covered in chains and stuff. And Wahlberg's just like, this spell is forbidden. And we cut back down to the actual fight, and Cell War's there. He's like, you actually forgot who I am? And I don't know why it's the best joke of the chapter. Mash is looking at him, and we see what Mash's vision looks like. And Cell War's face is just a creep up that's like, hey, answer me! I always forget that Mash is insane sometimes. So Mash dodges one of his Cell Wars attacks, and he's like, ah, yes, you remember me now. I heard your friend survived, and, after I get rid of you, I'll be sure to finish the job. And casts a big spell. He's like, oh, you want me to impale you like I did to my friend? And Mash basically just counters it by dodging. He just runs across all of them, and he's like, oh, he's just running over all my magic, and then just punches Cell War right in the face. And Cell War thinks, oh, last time he was barely able to hold back my attacks, but this time. And Mash says, oh yeah, I remember you now. You're the thorny one. But I've already seen your trick once, so it's kind of played out. That's how the chapter ends.
The main thing I have to say about this chapter is I really like Innocent Zero's look after his face changes. It's not anything to do with like the actual design of it. I just love that at first it seems as though, his body is shifting with the cube pattern, so like it's turning over into a new appearance, but that cube pattern with the tiles shifting is constantly happening. And it's happening all across his body, so it's like he's kind of constantly shifting in a few areas. So it's an aesthetic that I think is really cool, and is like, oh yeah, there's something very wrong with this guy.
Yeah.
So.
Also, why is Wahlberg so fucking old and this guy looks like he's maybe 20 or whatever? I mean, he has time magic, so the answer should be there, but yeah. Good stuff.
Also, the visual of Mash dodging all the thorns while basically doing like the Yoshi bicycle kick thing is pretty funny. So, all right. The Elusive Samurai, Chapter 19, Defensive Battle, 1334. The invasion of the village is in full swing. A few more traps get triggered. For example, they like poured some water in front of the boundaries of the village, and it's frozen over in the cold weather, so people are slipping across the very, very shallow ice. We also get briefly introduced to some of the warriors that they were able to recruit from nearby villages. So it's not just Tokiyuki's team and a bunch of children who are fighting these guys off. We also get a little diagram of an overview shot of the battle and how they're holding off the forces from two different sides. But Fubuki is analyzing all this, and he says our enemies are not average soldiers. And so we get introduced to some of the elites of this group who are, some of them are very scary looking. One of them doesn't have a nose, so that's nice.
I bet he's going to be the one that's going to be the strongest. We're probably going to have to deal with him last because he has the scariest appearance. And it's a joke. He dies in this chapter. They kill him first.
And Kimono guy in the middle of the battle is like, I better put on my armor. And so he does. And he starts cutting down soldiers that way. We're introduced, properly to like, the different members of his group. They're like the leaders of it and how awesome they are and stuff. The one defender of the town whose name we've actually learned, but I'm not going to bother memorizing it, is like, hey, Fubuki, what do we do? Yes, I will take direction from you, even though you are 15, because you seem to know what you're doing. So I catch on quick to who I'm supposed to listen to. So he says the Suez sect is busy. Dividing our forces will ruin the defensive line. So just leave this to the younger fighters. And Kojiro and Ayako kill the noseless guy immediately. They just fall upon him in a sneak attack. And he is very dead, because I don't think you can live with that little of your neck intact, basically. So. They also, like throw what look like clusters of sand at the other two leaders. Then the two of them go after the leader of the group, but he's wearing full armor, and that's very difficult to deal with. So he just kind of like uses his armor to deflect their blades and is very easily dealing with them, even though it's a 2-on-1 battle. And we get a narration that explains that in this time, the majority of fights between two fully armored warriors never tended to reach a definitive conclusion because it was just so difficult to strike a fatal blow. And literally the guy eventually just goes, are you kids done yet? I don't kill children, but I will remove your teeth and tongues and cut the tendons in your right legs and make you slaves. But that's all.
I like how he's just like, what are you guys doing? You're like worth $400 or something like that. Like, as though they'd be like, $400.
So they realize that they can't actually deal with him. So instead they turn and run, and he goes to pursue them. But it turns out they're leading him into a trap because they lead him to a false wall, which they flip around. And he's like, what the hell's happening? And he's forced into a building where he's left all alone with Tokiyuki, who is sitting calmly waiting for him. And Fubuki, explains the strategy kind of mentally for our benefit, saying, ascertain how the enemy general fights before fleeing, and if you think you can do it, lead him there. That elusive boy is sure to defeat him. And then Fubuki steps forward towards the other 2 remaining leaders of the bandit group and says, now it's time for me to join the fight. This is so much fun. Who wants to die first? So the training that he gave Tokiyuki earlier, he mentioned that it only works in a one-on-one battle, so presumably we'll get to see that demonstrated in this fight. It's it's kind of like, okay, a battle scene happened, but for the most part, it's really just kind of for the benefit of setting up what happens the next time. So it was all right, but I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm waiting for the big thing to happen next time. So
I also like how it kind of showed off like the idea of like, oh, well, armor was actually a lot stronger, and that's why it's like a huge upgrade. It's a big thing for these kids. Well, they can't take out this guy. It's like, oh, armor is actually that big of an upgrade, basically. All right, Nick, let's talk about Black Clover, page 295, rematch. And we get a big 2-page spread of all the black bulls wearing cool black formal attire. I've heard some people criticize Asta's proportions, but the thing that really annoys me on this cover page is, I guess because it's formal wear, Zora can't wear a mask, but he still has to like tape up his mouth or something like that, or he's putting his hand over it. I think he has tape over his mouth though, because his hands look to be in his pockets. That just seems very uncomfortable. We should normalize wearing edgy emo masks everywhere you go as formal wear.
I believe that the implication is that he is smoking.
Smoking? That's even worse for your health. Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Zora, my boy, what are you doing?
It's an odd picture to me because it's clearly a, like, look at how cool everyone looks picture. But they also look like they're going to, like, why are you, like, trying to look badass while you're going to a funeral, guys?
Yeah, it's a rough funeral. Anyway, we start off the chapter with Noelle dashing forward and doing a big attack, and Gaja is kind of trying to fend off Lolo Pachica, and Vanica is just taunting, like, oh, did you get stronger from me like I asked? I'm even stronger. You even going to be able to play with me? And Noelle shows off Undine, and she says, no, we're going to absolutely take you down. And we get a flashback to Noelle basically getting Undine, being like, hey, Undine explains, like, hey, before you ultimate magic or anything else, there's a certain power you need to attain. And it's Undine. And like, hey, you're really good. You could probably be a host for the water spirit. But I need to explain something to you. Like, an arcane stage could probably fight off Vanica. But there's a stage that only spirit hosts can contain. One that purifies malice and destroys devil, called the Saint stage. And Noelle asks a very good question. She's like, wait, if this is that useful, then why aren't we training Yuno and Fuego Leon? And Undine does not explain that. She just moves straight on. And she's like, anyway, I had a very personal relationship with Lolo Pachica, who never learned any attack spells because she's a very pure-hearted person. It's very, you're the best of us. I want to just get back to Noelle and be like, no, it feels like it's way more important that Fuego Leon is here because he's apparently as strong as like we are. This seems like a big deal. Undine basically is just kind of lamenting, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have ever been Lola Pachica's, like, chosen her to be the host because she was such a kind person in the end. Giving her all this power meant that she became cursed and was kidnapped. So I was wrong, and I need you to help me make this mistake. And Noelle's like, hey, not telling her about Saint Stage, that might have been a mistake, but you did it out of kindness. And being kind, feeling affection for somebody, how could those things ever be a mistake? So they're going to join together. And Noelle's wearing pants for the first time in a while, it feels like. So good for her. I mean, I guess they're shorts, but still, I'm happy for her. She doesn't wear pants at the end of this chapter, though, Nick, because she activates her new form. And It's Spirit Dive Saint Valkyrie armor.
And it doesn't look as good as her last Valkyrie armor.
It's a look. The butt wings are weird.
Yes, yeah.
But that's the chapter pretty much. I'm skipping over some stuff, but it's mostly just Vanica shouting about being evil and cackling.
It's a little bit weird because we have this explanation that Noelle's big power-up is that she learned to work together with a non-human entity that's going to possess her and give her additional strength. They don't necessarily get along very well, but they have a cause that unites them, that makes them want to work together, and that allows them to achieve this great strength. And we just got past the point where Asta just did that. It's a little bit weird to just have this whole thing and say, like, yeah, we just, kind of wrap up in one chapter exactly how this went down, when we had the whole thing with Asta that took a little bit of time to actually establish it. It is an odd thing to have these spirits as a key element in this story, because they only really come up when the power boost becomes relevant, it seems. And that's really it. Also, still waiting for Gnome to show up, the other elemental one.
Come on, guys. Who do you think's gonna get Gnome? We don't have anyone that really does Earth. I guess Soul does Earth magic. Can you imagine how fucking lame that would be if Soul got a Gnome? I mean, it'd be a character trait for her, I guess, besides hating guys. What if Gnome's a guy?
But I hate men. I don't have a lot to say about this.
No, I don't honestly either. It's fine. We'll see whatever action comes out of it the next chapter we get.
I personally do not like the new Valkyrie armor form, but I'm sure I'm just going to have to get used to it. So.
I'd probably be fine with it if it didn't have butt wings, but maybe that's just maybe that'll look better in a full.
The placement, The placement of the wings is definitely a weird thing. Just the fact that they're down on the spine, as opposed to where they're coming out of the shoulders, or so.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I've struck by a bolt of fatigue. So,
no, you're all
One
good.
Piece, chapter 1015. Chains.
Nope. Getting a little bit of internet hiccups, guys, so stick with us.
Yep.
There we go. It seems like it's gotten better.
If you say so. Okay. Stuff is happening on the performance floor. People are reacting to the news that Luffy has seemingly lost to Kaido. Queen is attacking Chopper, and he's not helping, especially now that he's learned that Luffy's apparently lost, because he's starting to despair. He's managed a body as a weapon to smack people around. Because, he's very important. So, we get just kind of like people reacting to the news. We get Queen, mocking Chopper for, kind of losing the motivation to fight. Prospero launches a giant flurry of arrows into the sky, and so immediately a bunch of people are like, oh no, what are we gonna do? There's nowhere to run away from these deadly arrows, and Queen's going to use his breath weapon to finish things off. By that moment, Sanji arrives on the scene. He kicks Queen in the head with his Diable Hambe, and then keeps on kicking him, and causes Queen's head to spiral around and act as a shield for everyone from the arrows rain. And eventually Queen's head, I guess, knocks into Prospero and knocks him away.
Yeah.
Hooray! Chopper, of course, is upset, but Sanji's about Luffy, but Sanji says, "Don't cry, idiot. After all this time we've been together, how many miracles have you seen?" And then he gives Zoro one last kick to knock him towards Chopper and says, take care of him. He's got the strength of 10 when he's healthy. And Zoro's like, 2,000. Because, that's how their relationship be.
Yes.
And he says to leave Queen to him. So, also Marco is there. Glad to know that he's there.
Yes.
We cut up to where Kaido had just arrived because Momonosuke was there, and he beat the shit out of Kinemon, breaking his swords. Shinobu is trying to escape with Momonosuke, who is crying, but Kinemon is not done yet. He starts to drag himself up with his broken katana, and we get a very sweet little thing where he thinks back to the first time he said to Momonosuke that they needed to have cover for him so that people wouldn't think that he was Momonosuke, the son of Odin. And so he was like, you need to start calling me father. I'll act as your father so that we can keep your bloodline secret. And so it was kind of awkward for them at first because, he was like kind of quietly saying, Lord Momonosuke. And Momonosuke was occasionally starting to call him Kinemon before getting it right and calling him father. But then over time, they just kind of started talking to each other more naturally, as if they actually were father and son. And so Kinemon thinks over all this, and he gets up onto his knees, and Kaido says, "What will these extra seconds buy?" Kaido gets ready to freaking stab Kinemon with a big old katana, which just looks like a dagger in his hand, as Kinemon just tries to buy them time so that they can run away. And Kaido says, "Face your death, warrior. The problem with defeat is so few can accept it when it arrives." And he stabs the hell out of Kinemon.
It's a pretty brutal, stabs him through his body into the ground. It's vicious.
Yeah. It's so brutal that the entire thing is in silhouette, so you don't get a good look at it. Shinobu notices that Momonosuke has grabbed one of the spy animal things, a frog. And she's like, why are you holding on to that? And Momonosuke says, I've got to tell them. And so he gathers himself and he calls out that he is Kosuke Momonosuke. And he says, I pass along Luffy's words. Luffy is alive. And he tells me that he will return to the battle. So keep fighting, no matter how hard and painful it is. As long as you still breathe, continue the fight. And we cut to Luffy in the ocean again, and he is mentally assuring Momonosuke from a distance, tell them I'm going to beat Kaido. And Momonosuke repeats these words and tells everyone, Luffy is going to win. And all the people who had started to despair are, of course, reinvigorated by this and start to keep on fighting again. So Kaido's caught up to them because that was easy.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you satisfied now? Shinobu uses a jutsu to decay the ground under someone. Yep. So, by the way, remember how there was a freaking submarine that they came in? They've spotted Luffy. Hooray!
Yeah, it's Law's submarine.
Yeah.
Being piloted by Nick. I don't think he's actually piloting it. He's just in the background. Jean Bart, remember? The iconic third important crew member of the Heart Pirates.
Yep.
What are you talking about, Nick? The fanfare should be off the roof. Everyone's been like, when's Jean Bart showing up again?
However, we cut away from there to where Usopp is with Tama and Nami. Toko is crying because Luffy's still alive. And they're figuring out where they should run to. And then her climate act starts talking. And they're like, who said that? And Nami looks down and she's like, my climate baton just talked. And it's got Zeus's face.
He's alive!
Kind of. Yes.
Yeah.
So presumably, his soul, when he was getting eaten, just went somewhere else. So, Big Mom, of course, is reacting to this news, and she's like, "He's dead." But at that moment, Law arrives while she's, battling with Kid, and Kid says, "Hey, don't you mess up my fight!" And Law's just like, "Grow up. We've got to work together. We'll just temporarily form an alliance." And then we cut to the roof where Kaido is, I guess, just had Shinobu escape by having the ground decay under her, I think is what happened.
I believe so, yeah.
And someone is shouting down to Kaido. And Kaido says, "I think you mean Father Yamato." But Yamato has arrived and says, "No, I've come here to cut those chains." So Yamato's going to fight Kaido, at least for a little bit. So
Yeah, pretty cool little scene there. I know a lot of people are bummed that Sanji showed up to take Chopper's fight. And while I'm not exactly 100% in agreement, I am at this point now very annoyed that Sanji's path through this arc has essentially been an almost one-for-one experience to his time in the Enos Lobby arc, where it's like after everyone splits up, Sanji encounters a female opponent, his will to fight a female opponent is tested, and he is unable to do so and is ultimately defeated by that female opponent, which then requires one of the female crewmates of the Straw Hats to come in over and take the fight for him, after which time he kind of disappears for a little bit, but then he shows back up to to challenge the third strongest member of the villain organization, who is currently engaged in a fight with another one of the Straw Hats. But Sanji, interrupting, basically says, "I have things I could do, and you have things you need to do, so you need to do this," which in this turn is Chopper healing Zoro. It's a little annoying that it's the exact same thing, basically. So,
all right.
Yeah, I get some annoyance there, but otherwise,
I mean, you talked me through that, and I was like, yeah, I guess he is right, but it wasn't something that consciously occurred to me. So
yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it should still be a cool fight, and I really do actually really enjoy the shot of Yamato at the end. It's a very cool visual
where he's just like, ah,
yeah. He just has like a very cool, tough face there, and I do like how he looks. And I kind of anticipated to get like a showdown between him and Kaido for at least a little bit.
It's been almost a year since Yamato was introduced in the story, and people have been like, what can he do? What's this devil fruit?
Yeah.
I want to see it. So maybe we'll see it soon.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Some kind of dragon fruit, probably.
We'll
or
see.
Maybe Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I know a lot of people have
Or wait, no, that's X-Drake. No, wait, hold on. X-Drake devil fruit. What is this fruit? Some kind of dinosaur thing, but I can't remember. No, he's an Allosaurus. Yeah.
I have seen some people predicting that Yamato has like the Byakuya, like a tiger thing, so it would be a different type of legendary figure to go along with the dragon. And the tiger and the dragon are like rivals and stuff, but we'll see.
Very well.
Let's go over our favorite chapters and MVPs of the week, shall we?
Sure. My favorite chapter this week is I don't want to give it an Undead Unluck, but I think I'm
again.
Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Fuck all you people. It's Dr. Stone. I love that stupid Doctor of Science and Doctor of or Scientist of Darkness and Scientist of Light. It's dumb, but it worked for me.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that there were very many good chapters this week. Like there's not. I don't even know if there's a single bad chapter that we had this week, but everything was just kind of like okay. So I think I actually am gonna go Undead Unluck.
All right.
Even though like like this chapter wasn't as good as some recent ones, but at least it was like, okay, yeah, it's maintaining the momentum of some of the really good stuff that we've had in the last couple of weeks. So hopefully next week we have some more standouts, because it's a little bit weird for me to have said for like an entire year, I don't want to read Undead Unluck, and then be like, Undead Unluck is the best thing in the magazine.
Yeah, we've had that a little bit recently. Character of the week, I'm going to give it to Mui from Undead Unluck, because it was such a cool moment of just like, why am I walking forward? It's like, oh, because you're trying to run away and we're using Untruth on you. And then using on Apocalypse is very cool as well.
It was cool, yeah. Oh gosh.
Give it to the toilet from World Trigger.
I kind of want to give it to Innocent Zero, just because I went, oh, that's cool.
Toilet.
No. You know what? I think I am going to do that, because if there was one character that made me just take notice of them doing anything this week, it was that. It was for a very like shallow reason, which is like, oh, that's a cool design. But yeah, like I said, not an incredibly exceptional, not a lot of incredibly exceptional chapters this week, basically. So.
All right, our audience picked One Piece, by the way, as their chapter of the week, and Noelle from Black Clover as their character of the week.
Fair enough. That is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, guys. We want to thank you for joining us here on twitch.tv/RoyalT, where we record the show Wednesdays, usually around 7:30 Eastern time in the evening. You can stay up to date on exactly when we're going to go live, however, by following us on Twitter at WMR Podcast, at RoyalT, at Nick F Time, or by joining our Discord server, where we will notify you when the stream goes live. The Discord server is also a great place to hang out with our community, talk about the chapters for each series that we recap, the series that we are taking as recommendation also gets discussed on there. You can use that to find the Google Doc that is maintained by Ninja X3i that contains all the recommendations that we have been over, statistics in terms of like stuff that we've covered, favorite series and MVPs and all that stuff. And you can also use it to vote for your own favorites and everything on there. Also, we have a great community that plays games on Tuesdays and Saturdays, so check it out. We also would like to extend a special thanks to our people who are supporting us on Patreon, because you allow us to create fun bonus content for you guys to enjoy. That is patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap. Check that out for the other monthly other recap, rather, that Chris does at the beginning of each month, where you can find out what's going on in stuff like Ayakashi Triangle and Blue Box and all the other series in Shonen Jump that we do not cover in the weekly manga recap.
Exactly.
We also want, and last but not least, we want to thank the people who help who help the podcast be what it is. Steve Mann, our title artist. You can check out his work wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn on the internet. Milo Jack Stillitz and Winston Del Cheddar, who create the opening sequence for the video version of Weekly Manga Recap as it gets posted to YouTube, which is one of the many places you can find Weekly Manga Recap, along with weeklymangarecap.podbean.com and Spotify, and basically anywhere you can find podcasts. Just do a search for Weekly Manga Recap.
Yeah. Also should note, because this came up in our Discord recently, some people were curious about how to get bonus pods, but there is a separate RSS feed for the bonus pods on Patreon when you subscribe to it, so you're able to get it as a separate feed in case you use Podcast app for that.
And do we have a recommendation then?
I do have a recommendation. So this one is a recommendation from Corito Prime. This is a series called Love Stage. It is a romantic comedy slice of life series, and I thought this might just be a fun one to cleanse the palate after a very heavy series. I know nothing about this. This could be full of monsters. I don't know, but we're gonna go check it out.
Okay. Oh, I don't know about that boy looks like he might have some creepy vibes on him. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, there you go. We'll see what happens with it. Well, Like Karina was saying, like I recommended that 8 years ago. Well, we got to it, buddy.
We got you.
We got you there. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for Weekly Manga Recap this week. Goodbye.